What's up, guys? This is a short disclaimer. I made a mistake with the audio recording. Apparently, my new microphone wasn't accepted by my MacBook. So what you're going to hear is my backup recording, which I took with my phone. So the quality is not as good as usual. I apologize for that. I still think that you should listen to this episode and that there are multiple gold nuggets to be found in this conversation. So, no more words. Here's the international best-selling author, entrepreneur, movie director, and keynote speaker, James Whittaker. Welcome to the Psychology Podcast.
So James, first of all, I'm very grateful that you for your time and for the podcast. Actually, it's not that different from your podcast. Like, I'm interested in the high achievers and amazing case studies, and I want to talk to them about psychology, about their biography a little bit. And what interests me about you is not only that you wrote two best-selling books, which is I'm writing a book right now, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be a bestseller. So I need to steal some tips from you to get up in my messy writing, and just from your observations and that you gathered from case studies where you interviewed people and stuff.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, let's go. James, if people ask you, what do you do? What do you say to them?
Oh, I help. It's a hard one. My mission is to help people take ownership of their financial, physical, and mental health. But when you're involved in a number of different business ventures and things, it can be hard to have a good elevator pitch. So it's something I need to work on.
Yeah, when I saw your biography, you are doing too many things. I couldn't even categorize you. Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a podcaster? Are you a writer? And what was the first moment for you that you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
I think ever since I was very, very young, I just had the idea that I was uncomfortable having someone else telling me what to do. I felt like I just had this bit of an urge to tread my own path. But it's a very, very difficult feeling to be in, because people from people at the age of 2 or 3 years old, we ask children what do they want to be when they grow up, and it can be very, very difficult to figure out what that answer is. And I was always envious of people who said, I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, and they can just focus on progressing along that path. But for me, I bounced around a lot. So I think when I first entered the corporate world, and there were a few turning points for me where I realized that the people who were above me in the organizational chain, where I actually felt like they weren't that much better than me. And in many cases, I felt like I had the skills and the expertise to be able to do some things on my own. So a big turning point in my life was when I realized, why would I spend all my hours every day to help someone else's dreams come true when I can go and do that for myself?
If you would put a name on those dreams, because this is something that I'm deeply interested in. It's like, for me, like when I work with people, it's really hard to work with people who sort of not have this figured out yet. So what was your dream, if you would describe it to a person who's not in your head?
Yeah, I wanted to positively impact the lives of more than 1 million people in the next 12 months. So I wanted to do that with the film and with the book, and just using and sharing the lessons from all the people who I have had the opportunity to interview. So I had something like 500,000 words of research notes, and I thought, well, I've got all this. This is just for the book, my new book, Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy. I had all these research notes, and I knew that there was so much gold in there. So even after having the book come out, I thought that, well, I need to start making more of an impact to help add value to help people take ownership of their lives, because so many people and so many big things out there that you see on social media are convincing people that they are inadequate and that they need your product and service. Whereas I'm trying to tell people that they are very adequate. We just need to work on habits, tips, and goal setting, and being crystal clear on your unique definition of success. And then we focus on simple and consistent action. So I've got a very clearly defined set of goals of what I want in all areas of my life. I have it here on a piece of paper right in front of me. Everything from travel to family to professional to just, absolutely everything. And I think the most important thing someone can do is create a comprehensive idea of what success looks like to them.
James, you were talking about your books and the movie. For someone who has not read it and who has not yet had the opportunity to get through it, how did you end up in with this project? Walk us a little bit through the dream of yours and what it actually is about.
Well, the original Think and Grow Rich came out in 1937. It was written by Napoleon Hill, is the best-selling self-help book of all time. It sold more than 120 million copies and really is the godfather of all the self-help and personal development literature that we see around today, whether it's Jim Rohn, Jack Canfield, Tony Robbins. They're all influenced by Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. And it was the book original Think and Grow Rich had a profound impact on my father's life when I was young. So it was the turning point for him. So I always knew how powerful it was. And it was only when I had the opportunity to meet the filmmakers, people who had been granted the rights by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to make a film about it, that I suggested to them that they have a book that comes out with it as well. And it was because of all the work that I had done in my life to that point meant that I was perfectly prepared when that happened, because I knew that I needed to play in a bigger field if I was going to be a success. I had these different business things back in Australia, but they weren't aligned with my mission of helping 1 million people in the next 12 months. So this was the first time in my life I was able to say, oh, wow, it's now time for me to step it up. But I would not have been in a position to accept that and be prepared for that if it hadn't been the last decade of work. So it's an interesting lesson for people who they might have these goals when they're young, but you don't have to worry so much about achieving those goals immediately. You just need to focus on putting in the work, and that goal might come back to you to be achieved in slightly different packaging, which for me was with Think and Grow Rich, writing a modern companion to the best-selling self-help book of all time. I could never have imagined that I would have an opportunity to do that, regardless of how much I thought about it. But from a young age, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to change people's lives, and I focused on increasingly becoming a person of value, and I was ready when the opportunity came up.
Fascinating to me is also that normal people don't have like those big moonshot goals of I want to help 1 million people. Like most people struggle, like I want to help myself and I can't even do that properly. So when did you start to expand your reach around yourself of people that you want to impact at a point?
It was interesting that as I was interviewing all these people for the book, people like Rob Dyrdek, who was a skateboarder turned business mogul. He has something like 7 TV shows right now. And people like Lewis Howes, who from being injured and broke and depressed and sleeping on his sister's couch to all of a sudden appear on the Ellen Show 3 times and have one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and interviewing people like Tony Robbins on his private jet. And people like Janine Shepherd, who was hit by a truck and was told that she would never live, and what she has been able to achieve since. So as I was doing all these interviews and writing these stories of these people, it really inspired me and elevated me to think bigger. And I remember, I'll never forget this, when I was on the phone doing a Skype video call with Grant Cardone, and he was telling me that his IT guys, he just had a big argument with them because he was telling them that they weren't spending enough money on their platform. He said, you don't need to think 10 times bigger, you need to think 100 times bigger. And his whole brand is 10x. So I think he wants to write a new book called 100x, because your beliefs determine your actions. So there's that famous quote, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Beliefs are important because they determine our actions. And if you don't think big, you're not going to act big. And if you think small, you're going to act small. So you need to think as big as you can and surround yourself with people who can get the best out of you.
James, how do I say this? When you wrote the book, and what was like the first idea that you even came up with the concept with? Because I'm fascinated, like as soon as you have an idea, it sort of sometimes develops a living on its own. But before that, what happened for you? Because like this is not the ordinary way of becoming for a man, actually, and this is something that is very cryptic for me. Like okay, there's this guy and he just writes a bestseller, studies all those interesting case studies, and he just does things.
The hardest thing is staring at a blank page. So if it's something that you're excited about and you can start to map out a plan, your goal is not to write a book. Your goal might be to finish an outline and then do your chapter headings and then write a summary of what each chapter is going to be about. And then it might be to finish each chapter, and it might be 500 words on the page each day. These are the little goals that you need to have, that if you focus on doing that the big goal, writing the book, will actually take care of itself. So when I met the filmmakers, I just said to them that the original Think and Grow Rich was 13 principles, what Napoleon Hill called his achievement philosophy, and that people learn best through stories. You know, kids don't like reading textbooks, and even adults, no one in the world, I don't think, wants to read a textbook. But if you inspire them of people who came from a similar position, or in many cases came from a worse position, who have been able to achieve extraordinary things, I think people would be much more receptive to that. So I said, why don't we do a brief refresh of each principle in a modern day context, and then you include 2 or 3 stories of people who were able to best personify those principles. Then that would be a great way to write this modern companion, because there is no way that I would ever try rewriting Napoleon Hill's words. He's an amazing character, and it's like rewriting the Bible. I would never ever try to do that. But it's also true that people today don't identify as much with people like Andrew Carnegie and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, but they certainly do with people like Barbara Corcoran, Bob Proctor, Lewis Howes, Grant Cardone, Rob Dyrdek, all those different people. So we've got a whole, it's a very eclectic mix of people in there, but there is an important theme in the book as well, that you actually don't need to have 10 million Instagram followers or be on a billboard in the Hollywood Hills for your life to be a success. It needs to be your unique definition of success, and then the book really gives people an opportunity to go after it. So that was just a plan that I offered to the film team, and they were blown away. They said that we absolutely love it, and can you do it? And I said, yes, I can do it, because it was something that really, really excited me, and I knew that would put me in front of all these amazing people. And yeah, and here we are now.
Did you have a background in making films?
No, this is the first time that I've ever done.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's the same. I'm a very firm believer in acquiring skills and abilities, and you can apply that to any industry that you want. If you look at someone like Elon Musk, like how could a guy who was doing online payments all of a sudden be doing electric cars and battery farms and taking rockets into space? Like, if you have got the right skills and the right blueprint to be a success, you should theoretically be able to be a success in any area, because you have the discipline, you think big, and you know how to build a team of people who align with your values, who can exponentially amplify all of your abilities.
So agree. Also, observation of mine is when I worked, for example, in psychiatry, that like people with depression, it seems like they are more in their head than usual people. Like the denser that you get, the worse places you end up in a weird. And people who are focused on helping others and expanding their view kind of are also happier in a way, right? When it's not about them anymore.
That's right. And a lot of times the frustration and unhappiness that we feel is a disconnect between where we are right now and we think we should be. And when people just sit there and dwell on it by sitting on the couch, they're not really, like, when they do that, they just constantly have this feedback loop saying, how did I get here? How did I get here? How did I get here? But what they need to start doing is thinking about where they want to go and coming up with a plan of how they can get there. And it's increasingly difficult today in this world of social media and the digital landscape that it's very easy for people to be distracted and procrastinate, and they feel like they're participating in life by liking a post or bitching about someone or commenting on something, when actually you really have everything you need right now to be a success. You've actually just got to make it happen. No one is going to do it for you. So success does not discriminate. It comes to all those who do what needs to be done. It's another very, very important theme, and your future success depends on the thoughts that you allow to enter your mind and how you convert that into simple and consistent action over time.
James, in your observation of the interviews that you make, what did surprise you the most?
Probably the two biggest things. The first would be the unwavering self-belief that all these people had. So it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks of you. The most important opinion is how you feel about yourself. And that means that they were able to back themselves when adversity strikes, because most people think that the hardest thing is getting started. And getting started can be difficult, but the hardest thing really is when you hit adversity the first time. Once you hit adversity and you have that unwavering self-belief, it enables you to stick with it. And it's that persistence that over time translates to extraordinary achievement. And the other one was that these people weren't really book smart, because people who perform very well academically are very good at calculating risk and therefore can come up with 1,000 reasons as to why you shouldn't do something. But all these people just needed one reason as to why they could do something, and then they went all in. And it is very, very important to evaluate risk, because that'll save you a lot of money and a lot of stupid decisions. But if it's something that you really believe in and you've got that gut feel and you're prepared to go all in and build a team, like Steve Jobs creating the iPod and the iPhone, these were completely out of left field. He didn't just give the market what they needed. He created a brand new industry doing that. So you need to back yourself to go all in if you do have these grand dreams.
James, you were talking about adversity. If this is not too personal, are there any particular setbacks that have led to something positive in your life?
There have been a lot, and there's a good friend of mine, Janine Shepherd, who's in the book, and she talks about finding the gift in every situation, in every adversity. And there's adversity every single day in our lives, but there's also miracles that happen every single day in our lives if we're open to them as well. So I've had a whole heap of different adversities and different challenges. I'm someone who I wanted to leave my country of Australia to go to America to play in a very big. I wanted to play in a big ocean to see what I could do, and I've had an enormous amount of adversities along the way. But at the end of the day, if you find the gift in every single situation, that it enables you to learn from different failures and just keep moving forward. That's the most important thing.
What was the most important lesson that you learned from your parents? If this is not too much, because I'm fascinated in how persons are built and how persons are developed, and I don't think that humans are islands, and there are so many contributors, mentors, and parents play a big role. Any lesson that comes to mind from your parents?
Yeah, from my mum's side, I would say she used to say that anytime that I said something that was negative, she would say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, talking about the importance of being sweet and kind to someone, even if they're being mean to you. So I'll never forget that. She's a pretty amazing character. She was a psychologist for abused children. So she just wants to bring more love and kindness in the world. So that was a great lesson. And then from my dad, he always used to say, handsome is as handsome does, talking about people only view you on your actions and your integrity, and that was another really important lesson. And I did really, really well with the parent lottery, so I have a very good relationship with both my parents, and I'm still learning from them today.
Interesting. How did you grow up, and what part of Australia did you grow up in?
I grew up in Brisbane, Australia, so I was the middle child. I had an older brother and a younger sister, and my mum was a homemaker, so she just didn't really have a career or anything like that until she decided to go to university and be a mature age student, purely because she wanted to give back to other people. And my dad was well known in financial planning for helping people get their finances back on track. So that work ethic and just that desire to give back to other people is certainly something that rubbed off on me from them.
Interesting. What projects are you working on right now?
I've got a lot. I'm actually doing speaking events over in the US, and I've got some lined up for Australia as well. So really focusing on taking my messages to big live audiences. I've also got a number of book projects underway right now, and I've also got an email that I send out every 2 weeks. So I see a lot of emails where every single time it goes in your inbox, it's just an upsell to some program. So I just want to give people a hell of a lot of value every single time they open this email. It only comes out every 2 weeks, and if people want to read it, then great. If they don't want to read it, that's fine. But I just want to let people know that here is some authentic value and some practical tips that you can apply right now. And I'm also looking at doing a mastermind group in January next year, which will run for 12 weeks, where I can really... I get a lot of emails and calls from people who either want to create their own brand or be an influencer for the first time, or they're stuck. They feel like they're treading water in a corporate job. And it's hard for me to really, really go deep in one call or one email. So what I'm doing is having this mastermind program for 12 weeks where I get some guest speakers and we go through a whole heap of amazing stuff. So at the end of that program, they've got a lot of great results.
Interesting. Something that I struggle with, for example, is when you do so many different things at the same time. I can relate, and I'm writing a book right now. I have this podcast. I'm studying. I'm a basketball player and blah, 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 blah. And how do you design for efficiency because sometimes I feel like that I don't know, my last podcast, Chinese entrepreneur told me beautifully that my Kung Fu is not high enough, that I'm not strong enough yet for multiple projects. How do you design for efficiency in order to not get overwhelmed from time to time?
I think the biggest one is figuring out what are the most important tasks you need to do each day. And if you go to bed knowing that you've got a plan ready for the next day, which might be something very, very simple, and then when you wake up in the morning, before you do anything else, you have a clear plan of what you need to do that day, everything that you're going to achieve that day that would make today a win, and then you focus on gratitude as well. So regardless of how you feel, focus on all the gifts that you have in your life right then. And that whole process can take about 90 seconds. You can do that very, very quickly. And then focus on doing, or most people would then turn to, when you wake up, you want that feeling of accomplishment. So most people turn to their emails, because every email that you respond to and you delete or file away, you get that little feeling of accomplishment. But when you do that, you're reacting to the day. You're living on someone else's agenda for your time, and you're not living with purpose. So what you need to do before you turn to your email and before you react to the day is finish those things that would make today a win. So start doing your life's work, the work that's going to get you closer to your 90-day goals. And once that's done, you can do all the other stuff when you don't have as much energy, because you're using your best energy to do it earlier on. And most people, they do that in reverse. And I was like that up until a few years ago as well. And it has had a enormous impact on my life, because most of these other things like emails you can actually do on autopilot, but if you're writing a book, you need your best energy to be able to do that.
And before we move on to the next section, what I'm really fascinated by is what of a badass network you build around yourself, and how did you get in touch with those people, and where did you start? Do you remember like a moment where it clicked and you realized, oh, those people are actually available for me?
Are you talking about people for the book and the film, or just people in my life?
I was talking about people from the podcast and people from the book and the film, like people you interviewed.
Yeah, well, I have focused ever since I was very, very young. I knew the power of getting along with other people. So I just tried to, along the way, offer as much value as I can to anyone who I cross paths with without the expectation of anything in return. And it has proven to me time and time again that comes back to me tenfold, maybe not from that person, but via something else. So I've just focused on doing that and increasingly becoming a person of value, because as you do that, it enables you to help people who are higher up the food chain. And then when you help those people, they want to help you as well. And I've got a really great group of people around me right now, of people who would do anything for me, and I would do anything for them. So if I have a TV show opportunity, I've got a handful of people who I can call to advise me through that whole process. If I've got a book opportunity, the same, like whatever it might be, I've got a whole heap of people around me, because they know that I have given them a lot. So if I need to ask them a question, they're going to be very, very happy to pick up the phone or catch up with me. But I think the biggest mistake people make in networking is they try and take. If you have built up a track record of giving and giving and giving and giving over the years, then that is what starts the receiving process.
So good that you tell us. What do you mean by giving? Because I'm sure, like, I'm not the first person who asked you to do an interview with, and like, what do you do in order to not become this person who's only taking? Because like, when you look at the power dynamic, the food chain is at certain points there's not so much that you actually can give this other persons, like I don't think that my skill set, for example, is super particularly interesting for you, and you still did it, so how do you make contact to those people, and what did you actually write in those very first emails, or was it organically for you?
Well, there are some people in this, like, I am not friends with the 30 people that I have interviewed for the book. Like, certainly I would say hi to them anytime that I saw them, but I knew that along this process there would be maybe a handful of people who I would become very, very close with. And there really are. There are people in this book like Janine Shepherd, Brandon Adams, David Meltzer, a whole heap, Derek Mills, there's a whole heap of these people in this book who I am now very, very close with. And I think when you have the opportunity to speak with them, coming from a position of authenticity and talking to them about their dreams and where they're going. And I wanted to make them feel comfortable pretty quickly, so they weren't afraid to open up to me and give it to me completely straight, because they knew that I was in a bit of an interesting position, that if I could write about them whatever, they signed a waiver, I could write whatever I wanted about their lives. But it was really, really important to me that it was something that they enjoyed as well. So when I met them, I just wanted to let them know very, very clearly, like Rob Dyrdek, sitting in his Beverly Hills penthouse office, we spent 3 hours together, and he knew straight away, because he gets harassed by so many people who just want things from him. And I'm talking to him about, like, tell me about your life, not something that's been done in a magazine. Like, tell me about the most important things so we can help change the lives of all the aspiring Rob Dyrdeks out there in the world. And once people realize that you're coming from that place of authenticity and you're not trying to burn them for a short-term need, that you're playing the long game, you're just continuing to add value. There are other people as well where I have said to them that I will go and present to their staff just as a nice value add, as just as something to help their team out as well. Anytime someone asks me to do a podcast interview as well, I always say yes, because it can be hard to fit in my calendar unless it's a couple of months in advance. But to be able to have the opportunity then to give back to you and your audience in the hope that maybe even one person might go, oh, wow, that was I'm going to pick up this book and it could change their life, and then they can change another 100 lives from that. And I just want to really help the universe be inspired around what is possible for them, and everyone take purposeful action for the greater good.
So agree. Also, when you're coming from a psychological background from your mother, and like, this is my dream job, and what a time to be alive, to have all those amazing case studies to study as much as you want. Basically, you have the blueprint in front of you the entire time. You can see how they think, how they behave, what their habits are. And this is the reason why I started this, because in my opinion, people like you who actually did the work and studied people are as much qualified as a person who is a psychologist, but who only had like 10 case studies in their way through academia. Let's move on to the next section. So we hurry, so I don't steal too much of your time. Next section is about happiness and success. And first question, I stole this from Tim Ferriss. If Nicolas Cage come to dinner, what would you cook for him?
If Nicolas Cage came to dinner, I'd probably make the thing that comes to mind is what I made last night, actually, which is just I had a grilled salmon with a nice garlic lemon butter sauce and probably some steamed broccoli, because I eat very, very healthy, but for most people that's probably very, very boring. And I would want it to be something that would be fairly quick in preparation so that we could focus more on the conversation.
What is your nutritional philosophy, right? Like, what do you eat normally?
Things that aren't in packets. I think people really, really overcomplicate it. I just like to eat things in their natural source because it's real food. If you look at the ingredient list and it's something that you wouldn't use in your own cooking, then it's probably not a very healthy product for you. And apart from that, I think people just need to try a lot of things that work for them. But if you are eating healthy and you feel great, then amazing. That's great. So I just if I'm doing like a lot of weight training, then I will increase my protein intake. And actually, just lately I've started doing the bulletproof coffees where you do what is it?
Butter in it or ghee. Yeah, it's amazing.
And the espresso, and I'm actually really loving that because it gives me a bit of a prolonged energy source. But normally I eat very, very clean because I just when I eat well, it makes me train well and it makes me feel good. And it means that I can get a lot more done and I feel a lot more confident, rather than eating a bad meal where my brain really overreacts to it and I feel miserable for the next couple of days.
It's so crazy when people feel anxious. Like, sometimes it's not something wrong with their brain. They just have low blood sugar and they need to eat something, and they are like a completely different person. James, what would constitute a perfect day for you?
Waking up and doing my 5-minute journal, which is just a great book to think about gratitude and what you want to accomplish for the day. Then it would be sunrise stand-up paddleboard surfing down by the Venice Beach Pier, which I absolutely love. I bought a paddleboard a few weeks ago.
I need to move to LA. This is
surfing on this paddleboard. It is the most exhilarating feeling. It's like the best thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I absolutely love it. And then after that, grabbing a coffee and some food, and then getting to work for a few hours on something that really excites me and fires me up.
How many hours?
I generally do a good 4-hour work block in the morning where I just feel like I've got the energy for it, but then I slump pretty hard after lunch. I don't feel great after that because I just get a bit low on energy then. But that's cool. That's when I do my emails and things on autopilot. And then I guess maybe catching up with friends for a nice dinner and getting to bed not too late, and so I can have a good night's sleep and get at it again the next day.
Beautiful. You were talking about the word successful. When you right now think of the word successful, what person comes to mind for you?
Oh, I would have said Elon Musk previously, apart from all his recent issues. But there are so many people, because I don't think someone necessarily needs to be famous to be successful. There is all the people in my life I feel like are successful, and people like Janine Shepherd, who is amazing. She's a very close friend of mine who has overcome amazing hardship, and she is still trying to be successful.
What was her story? I don't know her.
She's the very first story of my new book. So she was a Olympian. So she had qualified for the Winter Olympics in Calgary in 1988, and she was on a bike ride in the Blue Mountains outside Sydney doing some training, and she got hit by a truck, and then got airlifted to hospital and spent 10 days in a coma, 6 months in the spinal ward, and then in an all-body plaster cast, and was told that she would not live, that she would never be able to walk again, that she would never be able to have kids. And then she's gone on to become a pilot instructor, an aerobatics pilot, a best-selling author, and she's actually got a TED Talk, which is amazing. So anyone listening, you can go and Google Janine Shepherd TED Talk. It's incredible. It's got about 2 million views.
Definitely gonna put this in the show notes. Amazing.
It's really, really great. But someone who does inspire me is someone like Jocko Willink, who's been on the Tim Ferriss show.
Jocko's crazy.
Yeah, like the discipline equals freedom. I love it, but I also love that he also goes out and makes time to get in the ocean, to go for a surf and get in the gym and do all those things every single day, because we hear too often that people don't have time for these different things. But instead of saying I don't have time, try saying I just don't make that a priority, and have that little mental shift, and then all of a sudden you'll find a way that it can be done. Like last night I was sitting at home, and it was 9 o'clock at night, and I was feeling a little, I didn't do a gym session or any exercise yesterday, so I thought, you know what, it's 9 o'clock, who cares? And then I went out and did what I needed to do, and then I slept better and feel a lot better today as a result.
Amazing. What would you say is the one ingredient for happiness that most people completely disregard and don't take seriously?
I think finding out what is most important to the people who are most important in your life. So I've got a thing called a success plan template that I send people, and it's not something just for you to fill out. It's something for you to fill out with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife or your husband, your roommate, your friends, whoever it is that you want to share it with. Because once you're very clear on where they're going and they're very clear on where you're going, you can actually help each other, which sometimes can actually be just providing a bit of space so they can have this freedom to do what they need to do. And a lot of conflict occurs because people don't communicate properly. They're not on the same page. And there are so many people in the world today who are quote unquote friends with people, but they have no idea what their dreams are, where they want to go, what their passions are, and that to me is just not authenticity. So I think being very, very clear on what the most important people in your life want, and vice versa, because it means then that you can support them unconditionally to get everything that they want.
That is beautiful. If I would ask you the same question with unhappiness, like an ingredient for unhappiness for you, for example, that you would name that like people should stay away from?
Unhappiness, well, there's so many things.
Or even go a bit further, like depression, people who are totally like in constant pain.
Yeah, I think the very first one is not being clear on where they want to go. Inevitably, when 99% of people call me and say my life's a mess, or I'm miserable, or I'm not sure where I want to go, I ask them, tell me about what success looks like to you, and they have got no idea. So having a very clear definition, a comprehensive idea of what success looks like for you in all areas of your life, not just as at one point in time. What does it look for you What does it look like for you in 90 days, in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years, your perfect destination? And the funny thing about having the perfect destination is it's so much easier to backtrack to figure out the actions that you need to take today that are going to get you there. And that's what has you starting to live with purpose. So that's a very, very big difference. And another one is just toxic environments, whether it's your living space or your working space or just the people that you're hanging around with. Because how many times in life do we feel that removing a negative influence can be just as powerful as gaining a positive influence? And if you want to be a productive person, but you wake up and you never make your bed and you've got pots and pans sitting in the sink, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to feel like you're productive because you literally look around and what you see will impact your brain. So that's why I'm meticulous about in where we live, making sure everything is clean. And my wife is too, which is great because it means when I wake up, I'm looking around and there's nothing that needs to be done, and I feel good because I'm in a good space physically, like literally a good space, and it just means that I'm feeling very energetic when I need to get to work.
Couldn't agree more. I today wrote an article about addiction, and like so often people are not even the problem, but they are just surrounded by people who where toxic behavior is the norm, and where they even make enemies with their closest friends just because they behave in a healthy way, actually. And it's like super important advice.
It's so true. And a lot of people, they when they don't feel great, they sit indoors watching TV or playing on their phones, trying to just forget about what's going on in their lives. But if you actually get out to nature or get in the ocean, get a bit of sunshine, have a bit of social interaction and just experiencing the different smells and sensations of walking through a forest or walking along the beach or swimming in the water or doing some exercise. It's such an exhilarating feeling. And sitting on the couch watching Netflix for like 5 hours in a row, it's a horrible recipe for your life.
Couldn't agree more. Like psychologically, when there is not too much input, we try to make up our own problems sometimes. Another question, later I'm going to talk to BJ Fogg from Stanford University. He's my professor tonight. And he always asks us the question, if you have a behavior wand, like a magic wand, and you can subtract one habit or add one habit, what would you do? Like maybe a nasty habit that you still have and that you want to get rid of.
One of the worst habits that I had was that I wasn't great in the mornings. I would wake up and just feel like I never wanted to get out of bed. And I very rarely feel that I want to leap out of bed because I'm so excited to start the day. But as soon as I open the blinds and I get that sunshine and have a shower and a coffee and then do the 5-minute journal, I feel really great. So having that structure with the 5-minute journal, that really transformed my life because it just put me in a great headspace to achieve, but it also gave me a foundation of gratitude, knowing that I have a healthy body, I feel good. How can I not go after my potential today when there are other people who are going through enormous hardship who would do anything to be in my position? So that is how I feel every single day. But it took me many, many years to break out of that habit, and I'm sure I've probably got many other bad habits as well that I could work on. And one that I would like to add actually would be different languages. I feel like in Australia we're not very good at learning other languages, and I have tried a little bit of French and a little bit of Spanish, but I would really, really love to be completely fluent in a different language.
Yeah, I get that. Small tip for you: like try creatine before you go to sleep. Like waking up with more energy actually helps not feeling tired in the morning. Like for me, I also do the 5-minute journal, but what helps for me actually was like adjusting my sleep hygiene, like blue glasses, those blue blocking light, like a good sleep mask, no light in the room, some creatine before you go to bed, some magnesium, omegas, like from that standpoint. And but I think you do a lot of that also. Like if I'll
give it a try. Do you just have the creatine? What do you put it in? Just in water, or
just in water? But I would actually swallow creatine pills, because what happens if you take creatine and put it in water, then you actually have to pee in the middle of the night, and this is gonna mess up your entire schedule. And
And I know that also, when looking at your mobile devices before you go to bed, I've got a lot going on at the moment, which is no excuse, but I need to get better at putting my phone away an hour or two before I go to bed.
Yeah, no, I struggle with the same thing. I actually talked to the BJ Fogg, the professor that I'm going to talk later. He's like the world expert in habit formation, and he gave me a good advice. He just told me that, like, make it a household rule, for example, that you don't take your phone in your bedroom, for example, so it doesn't even enter. Then you eliminate the trigger, and you can perform out of it. One more question, then we're going to go to the rapid fire session. And what are like the most surprising commonalities that you have found in the 20 people that you interviewed?
I think the unwavering self-belief that I mentioned earlier, that was huge, that one, because there are a lot of people who academically are a lot smarter than them but are very low on confidence. Sometimes being too smart can actually be a bad thing. The ability to recruit an amazing team of people who align with their values and their beliefs, that is another fundamental part. And that is the ninth principle of Think and Grow Rich, the power of the mastermind, saying that you don't need to have all the answers yourself. You can surround yourself with people who are experts in, maybe you're not great at video editing or whatever, graphic design, whatever it might be. But they're also very, very good at a core thing of skills. So things like public speaking, they're very, very good at. Personal branding, they're good at. Packaging their message, they're good at. So, yeah, I would say those things.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the last section. Then we made it. Just some quick questions. Then we are through. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word? That's a very, very good question. At the moment, it's probably paddleboarding. It would be something. Actually, probably my favorite word would be gratitude, because I think that's just. I've been really, really big on gratitude lately, because it really allows you to stay centered. So yes, I would say gratitude.
What is your least favorite word?
Anything negative, probably toxic, something like that. Or actually, the word anxiety, I don't like as well. So yeah, anything negative like that.
What noise do you love?
The ocean, waves crashing.
Noise that you hate?
Anything that's not natural. So a construction site or traffic, car horns and traffic, I particularly dislike.
In front of my apartment's construction site for 2 years right now. So I wake up in the morning by beautiful hammers smashing into concrete. So I get what you think. Yeah, it's not nice. If someone asks you 3 things to improve them holistically and make them kick ass in life, what would you tell them?
Create your own unique definition of success. Elevate your thinking, and surround yourself with winners.
Surround yourself with winners. What is the book that you recommended most?
Probably the 5-Minute Journal. That has been such a simple book. That is really, really good. I talk about that in every single speech that I do. I think the 5-Minute Journal is very, very important. There are so many other books as well. I think, rather than recommend any other books apart from the 5-Minute Journal, that just,
or your own, of course.
Yeah, my own. Just being very, very clear that you do need to be constantly reading. So I've never read a book where I have finished and gone, oh wow, you know what? I really hated that. I didn't enjoy that. I wish I never read that book. Yeah. So just keep reading and keep reading, because you learn and it provides perspective. It's very, very important. And nowadays, there is no excuse not to be reading, because you can even pay someone to read the book for you via audiobooks. So it's very, very easy, but always read something.
Yeah. I recently founded a website where you can copy in the text and they're going to read it for you on the screen, and then you can choose the speed. So you basically just have to sit there like Clockwork Orange and consume books like Matrix version.
No excuses.
No excuse. If you could make one thing mandatory in school, what do you make it?
Probably more around goal setting. I think that's very, very important. If the teacher knew what happiness was to every single person in the classroom, and then all of them around it could teach each other what they thought happiness was, I think that would be such a huge difference in the world. That, and also real business skills.
Real business skills. Okay. We are getting to the finish line. If you would mentor me and you would give me some advice in order to how to write a bestseller, where should I start?
I would think about your messaging, making sure you've got a really good niche, because most people they call it like project creep in project management worlds. You want to make sure you don't add in too much. You want to make sure you're adding a lot of value to a specific niche. So I would really focus on who your audience is and what problems of theirs are you going to solve. I would also put together an advisory team of people who, when you've got a finished manuscript, that you let them know that you are happy to leave your ego at the door, and that you just want brutally honest feedback around how you can make this the best book possible. So having a diverse group of people, maybe 3 or 4 people who can really help you offer all that. And then finally, I would talk to people who have released best-selling books, and I would talk to them about the best ways that they can gain traction with that audience. So probably those things.
Yeah, nice. I got one thing covered from the 3 lines you said. Okay, what was the best investment in your life? Like, can be time, money, energy. And then we have 2 questions, and then we are gone.
Probably my wife. That's been a very good investment for me, because it's like your life business partner. It's been very, very, very important. And I've also got a handful of friends in my life as well who are very, very important. And there's even some people in my life who I actually would never go into business with, because they're just amazing friends, and I would never want anything to get in the way of that. So yeah, friends and family, definitely.
Beautiful answer. 2 more questions, then we are done. If you could put a life slogan on every coffee mug in the world, like Haku, what would it be?
Probably, if it's to be, it's up to me. I just want to remind people that nothing's going to happen for you. You're the one who needs to walk the path. People can walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. So if it's to be, it's up to me.
Amazing. Last question, then you're off to go. Imagine you would stand at the gates of heaven. What would you like to see, and what would you like to hear?
Happiness. Just happiness, and people enjoying things, whatever that might be. Just everyone getting along, just being happy and having fun. I think that's so important and often forgotten.
That's beautiful. James, we made it through. I'm so grateful for your time, and this was way less cringy than I expected. I learned a lot. I probably have to rewatch this tape a couple of times. Thank you for your time. Thank you guys. Bye.
Well, folks, this was today's episode. I hope this could add some value to you guys. This podcast still is in its experimental phase, so please let me know what you liked and didn't like. You can let me know on my blog, DannyKarim.com, or on social media. As always, thank you so much for listening, and tune in next time.